Hey guys, yeah, this is episode 15 of the Rugby Recap. You have myself as well as the Kiwi lad. So, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, mate. I have adjusted my sleeping schedule so that I'm on a northern hemisphere time zone. At the moment, I only got up a couple hours ago, even though it's 10 p.m. But I've pretty much had to with the amount of games that are taking place all at random hours of the night. We've got two games a little bit earlier in the week, of course, with France, Uruguay just around the corner, New Zealand versus Namibia, and then the three matches on both days. Going to be an absolutely awesome weekend of rugby.
No, exactly. I mean, you even told me that you had breakfast like what a few hours ago. So it's
Yep.
it's kind of crazy that you've kind of adjusted your timeline in that sense. But yeah, before we get into this, of course, in terms of the preview for you could say round two of this Rugby World Cup, definitely leave a like, click the like button, guys. Subscribe to our channel and comment below just to let us know what you guys think about this Rugby World Cup so far and which teams have kind of impressed you. And obviously, just let us know in the comments if you guys agree with our kind of I guess opinions of what we have to say so far of this Rugby World Cup.
They
But
normally
yeah,
don't.
yeah, they normally don't. But at the same time, there's obviously a few who kind of support us. So it's obviously good to hear, good to see. But anyway, let's just dive into it. So really, the first game that's happening literally today on my account is France versus Uruguay, and again, we've seen the France squad already announced. As expected, it's not going to be the strongest squad going into this game. And again, this will also be Uruguay's first, kind of game of this World Cup as well. So it's really going to be an interesting battle because we don't know what to kind of expect from Uruguay in this sense going into this one. Again, they did obviously impress us, in the last World Cup, with that amazing victory over the Fijians. But I don't know, could they shock us here? We'll have to wait and see. But just in terms of the French lineup that they announced, are you surprised by the names they've I guess included in that lineup, or was it kind of expected that they'll go more of the kind of not second string, but just more players that wouldn't make the first team at this current time?
Yeah, I think that it was going to be quite a switched up side compared to what we saw up against the All Blacks. And I guess that's just something that's happened due to the Rugby World Cup draw. The fact that a lot of sides have got a big match, then a littler game, then a big one.
Yeah,
So they kind of have to, I guess, change their sides accordingly. Up against the Uruguayans, I feel like there's a lot of unknowns, but then at the same time, France, with what they've been able to do in their past games, they should be able to win it relatively comfortably, which does seem to be a
yeah,
bit of a trend with this round of the Rugby World Cup, how it's a side that should be heavy favourites versus a side that are looking to cause the monumental upset. Uruguay, whether or not they can be that team though, up against France in front of a home French crowd. If it was sevens, I'd say maybe, but because it's Union, because it's 80 minutes, I think France are going
exactly.
to be taking
Yeah.
this one and really up in that points differential.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, again, we can never underestimate the Uruguayans because I actually do think they're better than most people what they actually expect, what most people expect at the end of the day. But yeah, when I look at the lineup which the French announced for the squad, I'm very happy, very pleased really to see Anthony Gelange, of course, back into this French team because he was really good really for the French for a period of years. So I'm kind of good to see him kind of progress back into the squad. He even said recently he's 100% fit and he's now kind of excited to be captain for this game as well. So looking forward to see what it can do. I mean, I guess in terms of the 10, it's obviously an interesting one to go with Haas Toy there, which is obviously, it kind of had to be with, Matthew Jalabert, of course, starting at 10 against the All Blacks. But I want to get your take because, I mean, I think I know the answer, but I just want to be sure on this front. Will Hastor be the one kicking, or will it be Melvin Jumane at the 15? Because, in the past, he's known as kind of the kicker. So what do you think in that sense?
The benefit that France have is they've got multiple options, which some
Yeah.
sides at the moment can't say the same thing. But I think that they'll give Histoi the kicking tee. They've got Thomas Ramos off
Okay.
the bench, so he will probably end up picking up the reins once he makes his way onto the field. But then the question
I
mark is how
understand.
long do they give him at the end of the game? We've just seen, we were
Mm.
going to talk about it a little bit later on, but we've seen a monumental injury in this World Cup
Yes.
now for the Springboks. And that was hardly even because of game time either. That was just because of a bit of wear and tear in training. So you don't want to risk your big players for any longer
Exactly.
than you have to, because with those quarterfinals just around the corner, with so many games back to back to back, as soon as you start playing 2 or 3 games, that's when the injuries start to almost arise. And we've seen it happen for Ireland. They're dealing with a few injuries of their own. I see Stuart McAnally He's made his way into their side now, but it's going to be a tricky one to manage. To answer your question, yeah, I think they will go with Hustoi and then Ramos off the bench.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So yeah, we'll kind of move on then from that game. Again, we'll move on then towards the New Zealand versus Namibia game, which does happen on Friday. And yeah, again, it's kind of what we expected. I mean, we even predicted this, within our lives. Well, I think I could be wrong in saying this, but when I actually looked back at it, I think we did pretty well actually in terms of guessing a lot of the players that could have been, that were included in this game because I think we both see this is where my memory's a bit. But I think you selected Luke Jacobson, right, as your 6, right, for the prediction. We both thought Sam Cane would be included, which is kind of bizarre where he's still not included in the squad, not even coming off the bench. And then, of course, they've actually given Sevilla an opportunity in this game, which is, I'm not saying it's surprising, really, because, he's someone where he's arguably one of the best, one of the most notable players in the squad, really, and a key player because he's technically like if you lose him, you really only have one cover really with Jacobson, in my opinion, in the number 8 jersey. So it's a big, kind of I guess risk in terms of allowing him to play this game because normally you would see this game as the one where you can rest a few players in, but hey, the All Blacks are kind of just want to go, kind of just want to straight in and get some revenge following that defeat, of course, to the French. So what do you think on that front? Like, were you surprised by the kind of the names were announced, or were you kind of pleased to see some of the names announced?
I think that for the All Blacks at the moment, they'll actually find they go a lot better with the side that they've selected here than they did up against France, mainly because there are a lot of players in the lineup last week that people were like, he's out of form, why is he playing? But now that the All Blacks have lost that game, they're in the situation now they've gone with the younger side, the players who have been playing well. But that back line is something that's going to be intriguing for the All Blacks because they've got Cam Roigard starting at number 9 alongside Damian McKenzie as that 19 combination. And I believe that in terms of those wingers, Lester Fainanuku, Caleb Clark, you've got a lot of size there. Namibia, though, in their last game up against the Italians, they started not too badly. And I'm sure that they'll be looking to improve on that. I think they've gone with a little bit of a similar side to what they had in that last game.
What I've seen.
So I'm hoping that they'll be able to push the All Blacks early on, try and put them under a bit of pressure. But I believe that this round, like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of high scores for one side and not so high score for the team that they're versing. And these two matches in pool A, I think, are both going to be points differential boosters. But Namibia, I think they're going to be a better showing than what some people anticipate. I know that for my prediction for this match originally, I went with something along the lines of 80 points to 3 or somewhere around there for that prediction. And I guess it would have been right if I had said it for Ireland versus Romania. But in this case, I think Namibia are going to get themselves a little bit closer in this game. New Zealand may start a bit slower, but then eventually start building up, maybe only about that 60-point difference.
See, I think it's the opposite, actually. I think it's because the side they've chosen, it actually just makes them more expansive in terms of the way they'll play. Having someone like McKenzie and Roigard, I mean, that's like, they really kind of just, they're attacking players in and out. So I do expect a lot of tries in this game. And I'll be honest with you guys. I think when I did my prediction for the vid, I think I predicted like somewhere in the 60s, I think, for this one. I could be wrong, but I actually, for my family predictions, because we have a whole kind of a WhatsApp group doing like a whole predictor thing, and I actually said it would be 92 points. I think like the 7 to the All Blacks. So maybe I'm wrong in this case, guys, because again, there's always that one game where you kind of expect the not the underdog, but really just the team just you expect to win to do pretty well. So I think could be the game. We'll see what happens on that front. But I guess overall, if I had to say a player, I'm kind of excited to see what happens. I mean, I guess Lester is kind of the player I want to see what happens in this game because, again, there's obviously a lot of comparisons between him and Marchelea in terms of who deserves a start in terms of that 11 jersey. Again, Marchelea, proved in that France game that he definitely has the capability to, play well against the best. But again, Lester Fainanuku, he can definitely show in this game. He has the skill set as well, and kind of the I guess not the audacity, but just really the just the skill set, really, just to kind of prove that he can obviously go against the best. But what do you say on your front? Who's the kind of the player that you're looking out for in this game?
I honestly think it's Caleb Clark. which feels weird to say because he's one of those players that a few weeks ago everyone's like, wait, did he even get selected? Is he in the All Blacks
He's been at
World
14.
Cup squad?
Yeah.
But yeah, playing at 14 for this game, I'm wondering whether or not that's the thing. He probably will play well, and then they'll have to make that decision of whether or not they put him in there in future games. The problem that they've got, though, is they've got a whole heap of players all fighting for the same spot, and they've already got players locked in for those jerseys, if that makes sense. So number 14, Caleb Clark's trying to get it, but Will Jordan's already got it locked in. Will Jordan's probably trying to fight for fullback, but they've already given it to Beauden Barrett. Barrett would want fullback, but he could also play fly half, but they got McKenzie in there. Mwanga in there, so McKenzie doesn't get the chance. It's a shambles in that back line, but could be controlled chaos in this game up against Namibia. And hopefully they find some sort of chemistry because lately it seems like they're speaking different languages across that back line, and not in a good way.
Exactly. But again, it just shows the the depth the All Blacks particularly have, I'd say, in terms of that back line. They have a lot of depth in that area. But I'd say Havili's another player. Oh, okay.
Do you think they picked too many backs now that they're realizing that when they've had one injury in that loose forward trio, that all of a sudden they're in a bit of bother, and also the fact that they brought in Blackadder for Narawa, getting the extra forward in as well?
I do think, yes, they could have selected one less winger, but in all honesty, I think what they should have done was because there was always the question around if Retallick was available, for the opening game, and obviously with Scott Barrett, what happened with him, his red card, there's a bit of worry, but of course he did make it in time. And again with Rosell as well. So there was a lot of kind of debate in that area. So I can definitely agree with you that maybe they needed an extra lock or maybe an extra 6 at best. So it's interesting because they could have gone with, Ethan Blackadder to start off with, or even, I forgot his name completely.
On the tip of your tongue. Yep. What's his name?
Yeah. There
you go. Yeah.
But
he's a player that I feel would have perfectly fit into this scenario that they found themselves in. I was pretty disappointed when he missed out. But, the fact that he has that locking jersey as an option, or he can play at number 6, that would have perfectly solved the problem. Tupavai is probably a player at the moment that people are questioning the most out of that forward pack.
I don't understand that, though, because the thing is that I understand he's not a 6. The thing is that whenever he's played at 6, he hasn't really been the best. I mean, the last time I can actually remember you played at 6, I mean, I may be wrong in this case, but I think it was against the Wallabies in the Rugby Championship. Not even this year. I think it was the year before where you played at 6. And he actually did reasonably well in that game, if to what I recall. But again, it's just one of those where, the injuries just did not help. And again, it was a last-minute switch, really, obviously, with Kane, kind of going out. So I don't really fault Tupavala in that case because, again, it's really just unexpected. It's like an unexpected turn that you just didn't expect to happen. But I do think they do need cover in that position. So I'm kind of happy they've gone with, Ethan Blackadder. And again, it's kind of been, I guess, a saving grace. Well, not in the best, I guess, not in the best case for Amoni Narwhal with his injury, but it's allowed them to obviously go for another player in that case. So I guess it's kind of helped them on that front. But anyway, we'll move on then from this All Blacks game, and we'll then move on towards Samoa versus Chile, which is actually a pretty interesting one now that I think about it, just because there's a lot of players in this Samoan squad, which we're going to see really a lot of ex-players, you could say, who haven't had the chance to play in, I guess in the Rugby World Cup for this will be their first time, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, the big one that just comes to mind straight away is Lima Samawanga, just at the number 10 jersey. I mean, I'm really excited to see what he can do. And I mean, again, one of my favorite players for a long time, but Stephen Luatua, just I mean, he's as you guys most know, he's an ex-Blue, and he's one of the main reasons. He's still on my Super Brew league that I have with my dad and a friend of ours. It's still called Luatua because he was just he was one of my favorite players when watching the Blues when I first got into them. But again, I hope that he does pretty well, and again, a lot of the Samoan players as well. But again, you were always, I'll go straight into this because you were very impressed by the Chilean scrum half, and I've gone back on the highlights now and I've seen he was pretty impressive. So I got to give you your props on that for calling that out. But what do you think about this game? Do you think it'll be a close game, or do you think the Samoans will be too strong?
The fact that we haven't seen Samoa play in a couple weeks, their last game up against the Irish, we've got to remember, and that was one of those games that they were so close then the heartbreak at the end. I think they're going to do relatively well up against Chile. And in this
Okay.
group, with the fact that we've seen a loss already to one of the big sides in Argentina, it means that Samoa's door's wide open, but they just have to
It is
grab
true.
that handle and go straight through it. So they have to make sure that they get rid of Chile here. TheRugby, of course, brilliant player for the Chileans, but for Samoa, they've got some X-Factor players. Duncan Paiua, I think, is one who is going to be very handy in this backline, whether they play him in the centres or whether they do play him at the back, and also some of those other big forwards, like you mentioned, the likes of Aluatua, Jordan Taufua off the bench. I'm curious to know who they go with at 10, because at this stage we should mention the team has not been announced as of yet.
No,
but they've got two
exactly.
options of Sopawanga or Christian Leliafano. Personally, myself, I would actually go with Leliafano, to be honest, just for this first game. Mainly because he's got that chemistry with half of the other backs. Whereas in that first game with Lima Sopawanga, he just didn't quite seem to gel the same way that they would have liked. But tactically, Samoa in that game up against Ireland, they had their heads screwed on very well because they were working with that weather, allowing those high kicks, which then put Ireland under pressure. I believe this game's going to be dry conditions. It's going to be intriguing, but I'm hoping Samoa get themselves a few points and start their Rugby World Cup off with a bang. But I also hope that Chilean halfback gets himself a new side. I see that he's a part of Super Rugby Americas, but I think he could be on big money in France if he gets the opportunity.
I literally looked at the whole profile and everything of him just to make sure, like, okay, like, he's still in a reasonably good age. He could maybe make the move he wanted to. But yeah, I'm even excited. I mean, I'm not even sure if he's available. This may be a bold shout. We'll see if it's not even right or wrong here. But Ben Lam is playing for the Samoa, right? In this, like, he is part of the World Cup squad.
I believe so. So he was one who got injured, but apparently it wasn't as bad as it was first anticipated, because I don't think Tim Nenai Williams in the end has made his way into the squad, and that was due to the injury.
But I saw Ben Lam is but the only reason why I say this is because I'm also doing fantasy in terms of the World Cup and all that, and he's still he's in the, I guess, the thing there in terms of an option you can put in. So I was just very fascinated. I was like, oh, is he actually available? I wasn't too sure about that, but no, I guess just in terms of that game, it's gonna be pretty good to see what happens on that front. Obviously, I will be cheering for the Samoans. Just really hope they do well in this case. And again, like you said, it'll be pretty interesting to see what happens if they do get this win, because they'll have to face the likes of really face the likes of Japan and Argentina. And if I do believe if you come third in your group, in the group stage, after it's done, you get an automatic qualification, I believe, to the next World Cup. So if they can get that, that's a big thing for Samoa. So I think that's really the aim they're kind of going for in this one. But we'll just have to wait and see. But again, we'll go into the next game, which I do believe is Wales versus Portugal. And it's one of those where it's kind of, I guess it's very similar to the New Zealand Namibia one, where we kind of see this game as a one-way traffic game in terms of what Wales can do towards the Portuguese. But do you think you think the Portuguese can muster something up here?
I'm just wondering, at the end of the day, we haven't seen Portugal in action for a little while, but the last time we saw them, they didn't look too bad. I don't know whether or not it's because of that last game that we saw between Wales and Fiji. Of course, there was controversy around that. So maybe my heart's saying, just let Portugal get that little bit closer in it or something. But at the end of the day, it wasn't Wales's fault. Like, yes, they were giving away a lot of penalties over and over, but it's not their job to card themselves.
No, exactly.
So they'll take a win any way they can get it. Definitely in such a close group, because of course another game that is happening in that group is Fiji versus
that's what I was
Australia.
We'll discuss a lot more about this, because that's where we're going to talk about the whole dynamic around that group in particular, because I think that's the exciting bit of this of that game, really. But just with this game overall, again, we'll quickly just go over this. I mean, Wales are kind of named a second string team as kind of expected going into this game. They've actually included some of their first team players still in this, with Louis Rees-Zammit still playing, I believe, the number 14. They've gone with, I think, Falatau, the number 8. So they've gone with still some of the big boys in there. I believe they've gone. Who else have they gone with? Gareth Anscombe, of course, we playing as the 10 for this game. I think Rio Dyer, I believe, is the other wing. So there's some solid players in there overall. So I think they can definitely do something in this game in terms of adding to that score, or just getting a higher points difference. So look, I do think this will be a one-way game. But again, hey, if Portugal can also do something here, I'll be pretty happy for them, because I think I mentioned this beforehand in our Rugby World Cup preview for the whole competition. But I saw a whole kind of documentary or video around the Portuguese team and how they've kind of come from this, where they've come from to be in this position. So in the back of my mind, I'm kind of also hoping that Portuguese do, somewhat muster a few tries in there if they can. But again, we'll move on then towards the next game, which is Ireland versus Tonga. This one, I'll be honest, when I first saw this game, I just wasn't really, intrigued by this game, in all honesty. But the more I think about it, I'm like, oh, this would actually be a pretty fascinating game to watch. And again, both these sides, to what we know of, haven't announced their teams yet. But with the players both these sides have, it's going to be an interesting battle. I mean, just first of all, what do you think of Ireland's chances going into this game? Because do you expect them to go with kind of a second string team, or do you expect them to go with some first team players in there?
Well, the tricky thing is, theoretically, with a 33-man squad, 10 of the players who were in that first game will make an appearance here. And the big question is, which 10 do you go with? I assume that Johnny Sexton will be one of the players who are left out. They might even look at some of those other players who managed to get themselves the 2 tries. Maybe Bundy Aki, maybe left out, or maybe coming off the bench later on in the game to have a bit more of an impact. But for Ireland, the thing is, even when they put together, as you said, a second string team, it's still a very good side. Like, you look at some of those players throughout their loose forward trio, they can make 3 changes there and still have a world-class side. Josh Van den Flair, he came off the bench in the last game. They start him.
Yeah,
Number 8, they haven't got Jack Conan, unfortunately, but I think, who else missed out? Kian Prendergast was another player who missed out on the selection in the end, so they've still got some options, though. I'd love to see Caelan Doris and Josh Van den Flair as a combo in this one. They probably won't do it because that would be too risky, having 2 great players in the same lineup, but might consider it.
It's going to be interesting because, again, this is where it comes down all towards the injury situation and kind of protecting your players. Because, again, you have to remember, after this game, Ireland do face the Bucks in the Stade de France. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on that front. But I don't know, I have a funny feeling they could actually start Josh Van den Flair in this one just because he came off the bench, like you said, in the last one. So maybe they'll give him a bit more minutes in this one. We'll have to wait and see. But I guess from a Tonga perspective, similar towards Samoa, there's a lot of players, obviously, you're going to play their, really play, their first World Cup in a while. The one that springs to mind quickly is Fikatoa, of course, in that center position, as well as Charles Piutau, who, if I'm not mistaken, actually hasn't played a Rugby World Cup. So this will be his first experience ever, which is kind of odd to say. But again, he's been so good, obviously, for a number of years for Bristol. So you kind of we're hoping we can see that same player in the world stage now. But what do you expect from this Tonga side? Because again, they have a lot of good players in there. Again, a lot of them in Super Rugby as well. But overall, just what do you expect of this side going into this game?
I think this is going to be a tough game for the Tongans, but something that they can bring to it is physicality and that heart that we normally see from the Pacific Island teams. Yes, the result may end up favouring Ireland at the end of the day, but if Tonga can put in a good showing here and just, I guess, show everyone what they can do, they've still got a few very tough games around the corner, whether that's up against Scotland, South Africa, Romania. That game, I think, is going to be a very interesting one to see how those 2 sides go head-to-head. But yeah, for Tonga, it's just about getting out there, getting their boots dirty and trying to dig in deep for a nice first little while, because they are one of the 4 teams that we haven't seen in action yet, alongside Uruguay, Samoa, and Portugal. But every game that we witnessed from round 1, the underdog that wasn't supposed to do too well, I think all of them started the match very well for the first kind of 10 or 15 minutes, getting themselves the early try. In some cases, keeping the rugby world guessing what they're going to do next and excited for what they can do in the future. But yeah, I think Ireland, they'll be looking to increase their points differential, even though it's not really being talked about hugely in some people's minds, of course, but in others, they're looking at that Irish points differential compared to the South African points differential, and there's the running head-to-head battle that's going on.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it may not even come into tuition because of the fact that if Scotland do lose one of their next games, more than likely it will just be South Africa, Ireland going straight through. But the intriguing part is who's going to finish number 1 and 2. And the lucky thing is we only have to wait maybe about a week or so before we find that out when the 2 sides Do you go head to head? But yeah, it should be a good game. I think it will be close to game of the weekend in terms of the excitement factor, in terms of the speed. Although I will mention there is a game coming just around the corner a little bit later than that one, which I think will have game of the weekend well and truly secured.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, I mean, not to discredit, by the way, the Scots, by the way, just talking about them in that sense, because we have to remember that Ireland still play the Scots, later down, I think in the fourth round. I think they play them, actually, I think they're the last team they actually play, if I'm not mistaken, in the group. So, again, that could decide, something in this group still, because even if, just hypothetically, even if the Irish were to beat the Boks, or if the Boks were to beat the Irish, like, there's still obviously some ramifications that are still to be decided in that case. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, like you said, very excited to see what happens on that front. But yeah, now we're getting to this one, which is the Boks versus Romania. But sadly enough, yeah, but we're not even going to talk about the game first of all. We just have to. We have to give you guys the big, well, really the big news that's really come out within the last few hours now, with Malcolm Marx, just officially out of the Rugby World Cup. And again, I do believe it's through an ACL, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I've seen different things saying it's shoulder ACL, but for what I've seen, most of the reports do say it's an ACL injury. So yeah, I mean, it's if there was one player I'd say the Boks cannot lose, it was probably him, because even though he is regarded as the best hooker in the world. Like, again, like, we've lost a lot of players and already, before this World Cup, with Lukanya Wam, with Andre Pollard, with who else? Lord Diego as well. And I'd say for all of them three, I wouldn't. You can make the, I guess you can make the take where they're not really first in, I guess, their position. Like, you can make obviously the case where they're not maybe first in that case, when you're looking at a global perspective. But for Malcolm Marx, he is clearly the best hooker in the world, in terms of that position. So it's a huge loss not to have him, for the rest of this competition. And again, the Boks will have to rely now heavily on Bongi Manabe to step up here in that case, as well as Dylan Foye, who actually will get really just more minutes under his belt now, which is something I guess he just wasn't expecting, but also something which he should be pretty happy about, because he's to what I know of, I could be wrong in saying this. So obviously, let me know in comments if I'm wrong in this case. But he has not let the Boks so far down throughout the games he has played. So yeah, he still has obviously some of the offer in that case. And again, there has been videos circling around that Marco van Staden will be seen as like kind of like the third choice hooker that set. So it's interesting to see that. But again, just first of all, what is your take on the whole Malcolm Marx situation? Because this is just, yeah, it's obviously just a devastating thing for the Boks.
It's a massive blow. And the big question mark now is who's going to be replacing him. I've heard people saying, is it Andre Pollard? Is it Joseph Dweba? Ivan Ruiz could be an option as well. And the thing is, I've even heard people say Herschel Yankees, bringing a fifth halfback just in case. If you're playing four of them in one game.
Oh, you mean Herschel? Oh, I thought you were Elton. Yeah. I thought I was like, oh,
no, Elton's probably in some sort of. He was on the juice, wasn't he?
No, playing rugby for a while. Herschel Yankees.
No, I don't think they'll do that.
No,
I feel like that's too many halfbacks.
They've already selected 4 scrum masters for this game, which we'll talk about. But
they have.
Yeah, no, I just I just don't know what to do here, because it's. I think the obvious would be just to say Andre Pollard, but I think more and more kind of Bok fans and I guess rugby fans are starting to understand or appreciate Manny Lebok in what he's kind of adds towards this Bok side. So I don't know. It is a tough call, but I guess like if I don't know.
The other side of things is, do you look outside of those players that you've got on standby, because you are allowed to do that? Do they look at someone like a Kieran van Vieren or a Johan Grobbelaar or someone like that? I mentioned about Joseph Dweba in my video that I made about this injury. I said Joseph Dweber's lineouts are about as straight as a roundabout.
That is something that
could definitely hurt
I actually wouldn't choose
the Springboks. So, I think we'll find out over the next couple of days. I don't know how long they have to make the decision, but...
he's already announced. Nebi has already announced that he's going to announce the replacement by the end of the week. So that's what it's already confirmed. So we'll know by the end of the week who's going to be the replacement. Again,
do you see them switching Marco van Staden from 6 now in this upcoming game? Do you see them switching him out and then putting someone else at 6 so that they still have van Staden as the backup hooker?
No.
You don't see them doing that?
I don't see that. I mean, I still think he'll be playing at 6, but what I can see happening is, I mean, maybe it's not the best time. I mean, it's probably the best time to do it, actually, in all honesty. But I can definitely see him maybe throwing out a few runouts in this game,
Yep.
actually. Maybe they won't do this. Maybe I'm just being hypothetical here. But I think if you're going to do it and just give him the opportunity to, like, just, I guess, get a test in terms of what could happen if you're put in that situation, then this is probably the best game to do it in against Romania. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, because I think Dylan Forney, I believe, off the bench, right, for this game, if I'm not mistaken.
So there might also be the option of him playing loose forward Dion Forey.
Exactly.
And then you have Marco van Staden go to 2 for the later stages.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I still think if it's between those two, I think Dylan Forney will be seen as the 2. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because it doesn't seem like they're going to actually put for what Yakis was saying, it doesn't seem like they're actually going to put a replacement for the hooker. They think they have enough cover in that case, which is interesting. But again, it obviously does allude to the proposition of Andre Pollard maybe going into the side, which from a ball perspective, we should all be extremely with excitement there. But again, it feels a bit weird, because Manny Lebok's obviously just come into the squad now. He's kind of progressed well, and if you put Andre Pollard in there, that could mess up the not saying the chemistry, but just really, I guess, the lack of authority, I guess the certainty around Manny Lebok in terms of what he'll be able to bring. So it's interesting. It's a good dilemma that for the Bucks to have. I'm not saying it's a bad dilemma at all, by the way, guys. It's a good dilemma to have, because you always want that. You always want to have that kind of dilemma in any team. But yeah, no. Just in terms of the game, again, we're kind of just gonna go. I mean, we haven't talked about the game yet, but yeah, no. With the game, I guess this is again what we expected with the South Africa side, to kind of name more of a second string team, and obviously include a few players to get more minutes from the previous game. Again, we see, I guess, you first of all, I just want to applaud you, because you got to bang on in terms of the bench, in terms of the prediction, because you said that it would be Kitsov, Frans Maheba, and I believe as well as did you put Dylan Foy as your bench player?
I did not. You did, but I also they didn't go.
But you got those 2 props right, which I was pretty impressed by. Yeah, but no, I guess overall, just I mean, they've gone with 4 scrum halves, which is I guess the talking point in this game. And for the first time, and I'll be honest, guys, this is probably I know a lot of people were talking about the 4 scrum halves thing, but what caught me even more off guard was that the Bucks have actually gone with a 5-3 split. This is like I couldn't believe my eyes. What?
Fit them all in.
Exactly. But I was like, oh my gosh, they've actually gone with a 5-3. But because I can't remember the last time we've actually done that. So it's interesting. But first of all, just what's your take on the whole scrum half situation? Do you think it's the right call? I mean, in terms of, I guess, what Kobus is playing at 9, Grant Rellen's playing at, I believe, 14, and then obviously you have Flath and I believe Jaden Hendrickson off the bench. So what do you think on that case?
Do you want the slightly unpopular opinion of it?
No. Give us the full truth. We want to hear your honest opinion on this. Yeah.
Okay. I think that in a game up against Romania, it's probably not going to tell them as much as they want to know, because Romania's defense won't be as strong as one of these top sides. Yes. So let's say it goes very well, having Williams out on the wing, having those 2 men coming off the bench, they're cutting through defenders, causing problems. But then you put that same lineup up against someone like an Ireland, or maybe someone in the quarterfinals, and it could be completely shut down. So I'm not sure whether or not it's more tactically that they're doing this, or maybe more so that they have those other players who don't have to play in this game still be rested, whether that's Chisel and Colby, getting the bit of a rest out on the right wing, Kurtley Arunsa as well. They've realised now that they've got that first one under their belt up against Scotland, this game should be already in the bag. So, yeah, I'm wondering whether or not it is a tactical thing that they are trying, or whether it's more of a preventing injuries, but it's going to be very tricky to tell whether or not it's actually an effective tactic against top sides when you are versing a side that lost by 70 plus points last week. You know, like you could put out all backs in that back line and then have a couple backs in the 4-pack as well, and you would still get yourself a decent result. Does that make sense? I feel like that sounds negative, but I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to be able to do, because Williams out on the wing, I think, is a phenomenal choice, because he's quick. He's going to be able to burn pace down the wing. The midfield combination, Andre Esterhuizen, Kane and Moody, I'm sure that they will do very well. Willems are at 10. Once again, he goes well maybe when they're playing slightly easier sides, but will he go well if Lebok has an injury and then he has to step up at 10? Or is he better off keeping that 15 jersey? Should they have gone with Faf de Klerk at 10 if they were going with so many changes?
To be fair, this is where it comes down towards the dilemma around Pollard and if you go with him or not, because you're not in this case like where you have to worry about that 10 position, because then you have obviously the reassurance where you can kind of switch around a few players in that sense. And again, we both, in our predictions, both thought, this would maybe be a good time to kind of build up more of the minutes with Manny Libbok and, kind of get him a better understanding of the back line, even if we both think he does already. But like, it's one of those where just to get him more minutes in. But from a coaching perspective, they believe, that they need to rest him, obviously going into the Ireland game, which is, I have no problem with that because, again, you do need to rest some players. It's just an interesting thing because, again, Williams did, in my opinion, I thought he was actually pretty impressive in that Scotland game. But, again, from a 15 position. But I don't know. I mean, Willie LaRue, I think this is a good game for him. Just get some more, get some minutes in there. But overall, just pretty pleased with the squad. I'm very just excited to see that loose forward trio with Van Staden, Clark Smith, and Dwayne Vermeulen because we both, I believe, thought that would be the loose forward trio in that sense. But
and we got told that was going to be wrong, didn't we? A lot of people weren't happy with us putting Dwayne Vermeulen in the starting side.
I was laughing. I was just laughing because it was one of those where when I saw the comments, everyone just like, what are you on about? Dwayne Vermeulen, how's he going to start? Like, he's like 37 years old. Like, is he even first or second choice? And I was like, guys, come on. Like, you should know by now. He's Dwayne Vermeulen. This is like, he's a big deal. But no, I just think it's one of those where this game will suit him perfectly, I think, for what it is. And again, I've never said I expect him to play the full 80. Not at all. Because again, we have, Jasper Wiese off the bench as well. So, but he does need to start because this is where it's going to come down to where I've always said this will decide for what we see in this game if Dwayne Vermeulen's fit enough or ready enough to go against Ireland. If not, you go with Jasper Wiese because I just thought he was impressive throughout the Scotland game. He proved it. But I don't know. I think it's really a 50-50 decision because a lot of people are going back and forth in terms of who they think deserves to be in the number 8 jersey. But I don't know. I've always said I would prefer Jasper Wiese in terms of that Scotland game, but when it came to the Ireland game, I did say I wanted Dwayne Vermeulen there, but I don't know. My mind slightly changed really going off that Scotland game, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in that sense. But anyway, let's go into the probably the game of the week for what we both believe in that sense, which is Australia, the Wallabies versus Fiji, which is going to be. This is what's going to start the group. This is the great thing, by the way, guys, because normally you don't have the two big games. Normally, kind of in the first 2 rounds, which technically will decide the group in my case. Because obviously, going back on that Wales Fiji game, we both wanted Fiji to win that, and a lot of the world obviously I believe wanted that as well. But the Welsh obviously just hung in there and got the win at the end of the day. And now this obviously because of that result, it now makes Fiji. They have to go out, full out in this game and really just get that W over the Australians. But I can't actually remember the last time they've actually done this, so it's gonna be a very tough task. What they have, what lies ahead of them in terms of this Wallabies side, because I mean we both were obviously very impressed by the Wallabies in round 1. So just first of all, what do you think of this game overall? Because I just want to get your take on what you think we'll get out of this one.
Oh, it's terrible timing for the Fijians, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the one time that Australia now looking like they're in some pretty decent form, they have to go head-to-head with the side that this is a must-win for the Fijians, or else they will unfortunately be missing out on the quarterfinals. Australia, their team, I'm wondering who they're going to put on the field, to be honest. I think Fiji will go with a relatively similar lineup to what we saw in the game up against Wales, with the exception of maybe that front row changing. I actually predicted that they would go with the 3 who came off the bench in the starting side, but it's going to be a very hard game to judge because we know that both of these sides like to play fast-paced rugby. You look at some of those individual matchups that we might see, whether or not that's Viliami Mata versus Rob Valentini, Vinaya Habosi versus Mark Nwanganita-Wasi.
I think that's going to be the key battle in the game, by the way. I think that's going to be the key battle.
Then you look through that centre combo, Semi Radradra, Waisia Noata Levu. If they go with that in the midfield, they were cutting holes through Wales. Tangi Valu, Lavani Botia, the boys are going to be in for a very big showing here because they need to. At the end of the day, they'll be gutted that they didn't win that game last week. And if they can somehow walk away with a victory here, it then means that Australia, they're in a similar position that what Fiji were, and they will have to beat Wales. And then it just keeps on going round and round. Do Wales face Australia in round 3? Yes, they do. This group has all the big matches back to back to back.
This is why I love this group. It's unbelievable because a lot of people would say, "Oh yeah, the Pool B is the group of kind of the look into, of course, we've kind of seen as the group of death." But in all honesty, guys, this is the one that gets me. I'm most excited to see kind of what are the outcomes.
Gets you going, doesn't it, Tim?
Yes, but it's one of those where it's what I don't know. I just don't know what's going to happen in this game because again, we also heard the news that Tendon Tupou is out for this game no matter what, and he actually could be out of the Rugby World Cup. I mean, it's not decided yet, but there's some rumors going around now. We'll see what happens in that case on that front. I mean, but it's a big loss because they've really lost a lot of players in that position in terms of the props. So I don't know. Maybe Fiji can get win those set pieces in terms of that scrum. That can help them, kind of edge a lot of penalties in this game, which is what they need, obviously, to kind of rack up the points and, I don't know, just keep the Australians away from, snatching a late victory if that was the case. But, look, I'm very excited for this game. It's going to be a great one. It's going to be a great one to watch. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can talk about this one because it's just this is going to be the game of the round, 100%. Yeah.
It's a stylistically perfect matchup for the Rugby World Cup because we know both sides, neither one's going to play the kicking game for too long at all. I think they'll go for a few kicks here and there, and then both sides want to run it, and that is something that the Australians have been working on under Eddie Jones, is trying to play a little bit more of that aggressive rugby, trying to get forward rather than going for that territory battle, because up against the Northern Hemisphere sides, it is very rare that a Southern Hemisphere side does win that territory kicking battle because they are used to playing it in the Six Nations and the other competitions. So the thing that benefits the Southern Hemisphere, we saw it as a perfect example when the Springboks started trying to run the ball more than kicking up against Scotland. They started finding the success.
It worked.
They've got quick players. They can find the try line efficiently with it. And to be honest, I can kind of see both of these sides walking away with probably at least 1 point in this game, if not 2. One for being 100%. The 4 tries scored, because I don't see this one being a low-scoring test match. I see both of these sides cutting each other open, and
it would be great.
Australia.
Sorry to cut you out there, but it would be great if Fiji were to get 5 in this game and Wallabies get 2. So then it means that both sides are on the same kind of
against Wales, Tim.
And then Wales versus the Wallabies. Oh, that'd be great. And again, it would obviously then come down to what Fiji do in the rest of the games. But
I think that's a little bit of the concern as well. They may have their 2 big matches in the first 2 games, and then who knows, maybe they do slip up against the Georgians, or Portugal catch them off guard or something along those lines. We've seen it in the past that Georgia and Fiji have had close games. So there's a lot on the line for Pool C each and every week. And then I think that the final week will be the determining factor in terms of that points differential and who's got just that little bit more left in the tank. But should be an outstanding game. Game of the weekend, calling it now. If the referee ruins it, I will be sad. Definitely because it's taking place at 3:45 a.m. New Zealand
will
time.
Be ballistic if that happens again. I fully agree with that. Fully agree. But anyway, we're moving then towards the last game of this preview here, which is England versus Japan. It's one of those games where I guess just when you look at it just face front, it really seems that it'll be a clear victory here for the English. But hey, following that pretty good win, I'd say, against the Chileans, the Japanese look pretty good. They look like they're back to their best in that sense. Again, this is obviously going off only one game, so it could be flipped like that, and the English can maybe have a kind of a one-sided game going into this one. But what do you think? Because I mean, the English, we both agreed were probably the most impressive team, I'd say, in round 1. Do you think they'll be able to kind of carry that one within this one, or do you think the Japanese will give them a run for their money?
Well, one of the more impressive teams of round 1. Maybe not quite the best for myself, but at the end of the day,
for your one,
I think I went with the Australians because everyone thought that game was going to be extremely close, and they were able to slightly edge it. But I think for England, we talked about it last week as well in their game up against Argentina. It's great getting yourself wins in these pool stage matches, but when you get into the quarterfinals, into the semis, if you make it that far, you gotta cross the try line. And yes, the drop kicking, I assume that it will make a return in this game. That is if George Ford is playing at number 10. But we've got to remember, by the time we get to those quarterfinals, Owen Farrell would have served his ban, which will then mean, are we going to see Farrell doing as much drop kicking and getting those penalties?
I don't think so. I think they found a guy.
The tricky part for them here is trying to, I guess, just be a bit more aggressive on attack. But then at the same time, they need to win. So you got to do what you need to do to get yourself that victory. We know that they won't have Tom Curry, and that loose forward trio is the only player who was red carded in round number 1. I couldn't believe it looking at the amount of yellow cards, and then also some of them that looked very close to being actually worse than Tom Curry's were only given as yellow. So
I was then I'm not even sure if we mentioned this within the last one when we talked about it, but when I saw the red, when I saw the incident happened, I actually said immediately it's going to be a yellow, but it could go to review because it's going to be one of those ones which will be decided within the review process. Because the way I thought of it was like where Tom Curry, when he, I guess, made the challenge in that sense, the Argentinian, I think it was Juan, was it Malia Cruz? I think it was, I'm not sure if it was him who went down.
So, yeah.
I think it was maybe him, but essentially, if he was down in the air, like I think he was literally close to touching the ground, like he was like literally just like this off. But because I think he was still in the air. I think that's the reason why they had to give it as a red. Because if you're going to tackle a play in the air, that's already a yellow. And then the way it happened, that's what really enforces it to make the red. But I thought literally if he was on the ground, then I think it's just a yellow. I think it's just a yellow. It's one of those where it's just 10 minutes and then he can come back on and it won't really impact the game as much as it did. Again, it was really the opposite effect. And again, we talked about this already, but it's one of those ones where, we'll see what happens. I don't think it'll have a huge effect on this English side. I just think that they've really displayed, a pretty impressive performance against the Argentinians, and I believe they should be able to carry that on against the Japanese. But I would not be surprised the Japanese are in this game. I would not be surprised at all, by the way, guys, because they definitely have the firepower to kind of muster up a performance here. I truly believe that. I think they can actually surprise a lot of people in this game. I'm not saying they could win. I just think that they can surprise a few people. But yeah, I guess that's it really just for this preview, guys. Again, let us know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys agree or I guess disagree with our opinions here in terms of what we believe in this preview. But just very excited, obviously, for this round 2 of this Rugby World Cup. And like and subscribe, guys. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.